order. Although we don't have a quorum, we can't take verbal reports, anything without action items attached. So that's what we're going to do until such time as we get a quorum. Kim,
Great, so
take it away.
It's my pleasure. I was not at the last meeting, and I heard Elizabeth Handler, our public information manager, who does a fabulous job of pulling this newsletter together, did such a fabulous job presenting it. We're going to give her the opportunity again.
okay,
So
all
go,
right.
Elizabeth. Share the love.
Hi. Thank you, Chair and City Council members. Elizabeth Handler, Public Information Manager.
Let me put that on hold for a second. Now that we have a quorum, can we take roll call?
Thank you. Sorry I was late.
Councilmember Foley,
Here.
Councilmember Espaza,
Here.
Chair Camus.
Here.
Roll call.
Okay, sorry for interrupting you.
No problem. Elizabeth Handler, Public Information Manager, Office of Economic Development. Our economic news for this month, the November issue of our newsletter is going to kick off with news of the City Council's passage of the electronic billboards measure, which is now resulting in an RFP process to advertisers interested in getting their digital signage seen on some of our city-owned buildings downtown, including the Convention Center and the Museum of Art and Center for the Performing Arts. And we feel that this is going to enliven downtown, especially at night. It's going to make for a much more lively ambiance. Diridon Station area update. The community engagement process there continues apace in the end of August, and then in September there were a series of community events that were held. First was the August kickoff at the Arena Green, where Google shared their framework for the community to have a close look at. And the city's OED set up its own table for information, and we are getting still a lot of people coming by with ideas and questions. There was the Village Fest in District 7 at the Village Oaks Shopping Center in September, and then actually at Viva Calle yesterday, we had the table set up as well too. And again, lots of people coming by. We're really excited to announce the 40th year of Olympus in San Jose. That's a really long time for a company to have its headquarters, and it's now actually the international headquarters of their service center for their surgical technologies. And they are moving. They've outgrown the building that they started in, was 200 employees, one shift. Now they're 3 shifts and over 800 employees. And one of their executives noted that 3 shifts, no parking, time to move. The good news is they're moving in San Jose. So yay. So their new buildings will be finished for move-in in 2020. So we will still have them. Well, that's not public yet.
Okay.
They're keeping that under wraps still. But it is within San Jose. That's the good news. On the manufacturing side, we had a very successful roundtable that was hosted by the Silicon Valley Manufacturing Roundtable folks, and Manufacturer SJ is now managing that for OED. And they did a lovely job at Prospect Silicon Valley, brought together a good panel discussing the implications of financial planning for corporate health. And it turns out you can't have too much financial planning to be healthy. And we went from large companies to the founder and owner of Knox Cookie Bar, who shared with us, I know, huh? The best. That his financial analysis that he undertook just as a pro forma actually uncovered an entirely new business opportunity that he didn't even realize he had, that his catering business had enormous potential, and he's now going to be expanding into wholesale production, and he has a contract with Safeway, which is really exciting for a small little startup downtown.
Oh, yeah.
We are really excited to welcome another business development officer to our staff as housing catalyst. And Jared Ferguson, who is no stranger to this city, has worked with the mayor, he's worked with Peter Constant, and he's worked with Chappie Jones, so he knows the city really well, and he's going to be helping provide the kind of hand-holding and support that OED has always provided for the commercial and retail developers. He's now serving that role for the housing developers, and we hope that that will help with firming up our housing situation. Some members of OED got a really fascinating and totally terrifying tour of the grad because it included an 18-floor trip up in the outside construction elevator, which is not for the faint of heart, and we all wore hard hats. But it's going to be a very exciting building downtown. It is designed for student housing, although it can't be restricted to student housing. The dorm-style apartments are really fancy and very, very sweet. I would not mind living there at all, with 4 bedrooms, each with its own bathroom, but then a nice common area, living room and kitchen, and their own laundry. It's really going to be gorgeous. So that's going to be opening in 2020, and that was a project that OED worked very hard on with the city to move the 19-story entitlement process through in 5 months, if you can believe that or not. That was kind of a record. And then finally, we had some art coming to SOFA. Scape Martinez designed some amazing crosswalks at the intersection of San Fernando and, San Salvador and South First Streets. And City Paving had to kind of obliterate his design in the middle of the intersection, but he was able to multiply it by 4, and a joint project of the Office of Cultural Affairs, Department of Transportation, and the Downtown Association got 4 of these amazing crosswalks installed instead. That's it.
All right, you don't get to hear the word obliterate too often. So thank you for the report. Any questions from my council colleagues?
Nope.
All right, I recognized a couple of those pictures. Anyway, thank you for your work, and what we'll go back and do is go to the consent calendar, and I do have somebody who wants to talk about item C3. So can I get a motion to approve C1 and C2, please?
Move approval.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, Martha, would you like to come up and speak on item C3?
Martha O'Connell speaking as a citizen and not as a commissioner. Just drawing your attention to item 29 on the HCDC work plan, outreach authorization for commissioners. This is still hanging fire. I watched the video from last year, and Kristen did a wonderful job of explaining that this was not to express an opinion or to speak for the commission, but it was simply to gather input. And at the time, you guys were told that the city clerk would have the 04 stuff done by spring. It is now September, and there is still no motion on the amendments to 04, which is stymieing the ability of the designated seats for the park owners, mobile home park owners, mobile home park residents, and the new apartment landlords under the rent control ordinance to go out into the community just to get input, not to make any statement or advocate anything. So just wanted you to be aware that it's a year later and 04 is still hanging fire. Thank you.
Thank you. I know that the clerk's office has been met with quite a few employee issues lately, losing a lot of staff. And, but that being said, we'll refer that back to staff. Can I get a motion to accept item C3?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Wonderful. Okay, on to item 2, Team San Jose's annual report of activities and semi-annual performance measures.
Yes, good afternoon, Carrie. I'm Sackner. You just give me a moment. I'm going to pull up our PowerPoint.
Can I go get some towel? Be right back.
Thank you. Good afternoon, members of the committee. My name is Carrie Adams Hapner. I'm the Director of the Office of Cultural Affairs. I manage the Team San Jose contracts on behalf of the City Manager's Office. So here today with us are several members of the Team San Jose executive team. To my immediate right, we have Ben Roschke, who is the Director of Research and Strategic Development. We have Laura Shemaluski, who's the Vice President of Marketing and Communications. And with us today is a new member of the Team San Jose team, and that's Matthew Martinucci, and he is the new Vice President of Sales and Destination Services. So welcome, Matthew, to San Jose and Team San Jose. So just by way of background, Team San Jose is a nonprofit organization that manages the city-owned convention facilities and also 4 of the city-owned theaters in the downtown, and also manages the Convention and Visitor Bureau, also known as the CVB. And per our municipal code, Team San Jose receives 4.5% of the 10% of the TOT that's collected, and that TOT is derived from visitors from us to our San Jose hotels. And per our master agreement with Team San Jose, we provide semi-annual updates to this committee on both how they're doing on their council-approved performance targets. Also, we present an update on their sales and marketing activities. And then also today, we'll be getting a report on our new agreement with them, which is essentially they are the merchandise representative for the San Jose mark and the other OAD-related merchandise related to the new marks. So with that, we're also just by way of background, this report covers the unaudited results for our last fiscal year, which is fiscal year 18-19. And just for your recollection, each year the auditor's office does present an audited version of their results to the council by the end of the calendar year. So these are the unaudited results, and then you'll hear back from the auditor's office. And then when they do meet their targets, they receive what's called an incentive fee. So with that, I just want to make an important remark in that Team San Jose has been performing extraordinarily well on behalf of the city. You'll see that their results are very, very great. And that's in large part because of their great sales team and the economy, but also their ability to attract really important events to our convention facilities like Facebook, like Apple, like TwitchCom. So we're really fortunate that we have this great partner with us. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to them for a full report. Thank you.
Good afternoon. We'll start with just a quick review of, as Carrie said, the unaudited performance metrics for fiscal year.
Why don't you speak into that microphone? Thank you. Sorry.
Fiscal year 18-19 unaudited performance metrics. We had a really strong year again. So there are 5 different measures which were measured on. 2 are sort of our economic impact measures. So the first is direct visitor spending generated by events within our facilities. We generated almost $139 million through the facilities this year. We had, again, really strong showings from large tech groups like Apple, Facebook, Oculus. We also were fortunate, to realize some significant spending through several large sports groups that we were able to welcome in January. So CFP championship game, and then just a couple weeks later, NHL All-Star, all activated downtown, all brought thousands of people into the convention center. So really good economic activity from both of those, even despite the weather during CFP run-up. For future hotel room nights, we booked 177,000 room nights. And the way we measure that is those are bureau booked rooms that go into the facilities or directly into hotels for all future years. So some of those could actualize 3-4 years down the road. We sort of space it out in terms of utilization in the convention center, booking patterns for clients, but we set against a goal of 160,000 and booked about 177,000 for future years. Then we have the rest of our metrics are sort of more focused on performance around the facilities. So we have a customer satisfaction, which is the event users within the facility scored 98%, said that they were pleased or very pleased with the services provided within the facilities. Our theater occupied days, we scored 97% occupancy against a goal of 86%. Those are measured against prime theater dates, and then our ability to have those dates occupied above and beyond just the resident arts partners within them. For gross operating revenues and our gross operating results, really strong performance. 63 million in operating revenues against a goal of 44, and gross operating results, that's sort of the sort of totality in terms of our results, factoring in TOT revenue as well that goes to help underwrite the convention center, came out almost 4 million ahead of budget there. And I'll dive into our dashboard metrics, which are not performance metrics based on our contracts, but these are other things that we kind of report out to you that sort of give a, some more enlightenment in terms of what's happening around the facilities and tourism within San Jose. So we dive into our operating revenues there, and so you can see we had several different line items within our revenues that performed very well for us. Specifically, although there wasn't a lot of growth year over year, F&B continues to be a really strong performer for us. We really had a lot of growth in sort of our production labor that we provide, and a lot of that has to do with our larger tech companies expanding the scope of their shows. So as they build out more elaborate sets, exhibit spaces, et cetera, it employs more people within the convention center, and then those revenues rise accordingly for us. From a profitability standpoint, there's not a lot of profitability because our costs go up as the labor goes up, but it's just indicating the increasing scope and size of these shows that are coming through. Other couple quick notes. We'll touch on this a little bit more, but for the first time in probably 8 years, we've actually seen some occupancy softening in the hotel market. That's occurring with us. It's also occurring up in San Francisco, and it's something we've been keeping an eye on. It's been more than offset from like a revenue and tax because room rates remain very strong, but this sort of softening on the occupancy side is something that we're looking and we'll talk about a little bit more as we get into our plans specific to sort of group sales moving forward. On the marketing side, if you recall last year, like early in the year, we launched the new website for Visit San Jose that sort of incorporated a lot of the changes that came through with OED's rebranding. So with the first full year, we saw a significant jump in traffic, almost 25% growth, had 1.1 million unique visitors this last year, up from about 880,000. Also really strong subscription into the e-news subscribers, up about almost 11% year over year, which continues to be one of our main vehicles for Laura's team to get the story of San Jose out. Moving on, we like to report out sort of what we're seeing in terms of moving citywide pieces of business into the convention center. So for citywide for us, these are groups that have 600 or more hotel rooms on their peak nights. So at the top of their sort of bell curve of hotel consumption, it's 600 or greater. That usually means that they're touching 3 or 4 properties at a minimum, utilizing almost the full facility and bringing the most economic impact. So we kind of look at these groups as our whales for the city. Year over year, the number we booked was down. We booked probably, I think, about 32 last year. However, the total room volume associated with those groups was up significantly, the ones we booked last year. We had a couple that were extremely large programs that we were able to sign. Overall, looking at occupancy, and Matthew's going to touch on this a little bit, the convention center as it stands today is for 19 and 20, we have very little availability in terms of occupancy. We're looking at some opportunities to shift some of that around, and Matthew will talk about that a little bit. But we do have a strong occupancy, good level of business moving into the next couple of years. Overall lead generation, we saw it remain flat year over year. The one thing we did notice was that the volume of room nights overall for all leads that came in went down. Talking with hotels, yeah, all right, move faster. Yeah, that's just sort of industry trend. Okay. Any questions, or I'll just move into the marketing plan?
Thanks, Kim.
And keep it moving. All right, so, all right, yeah, so marketing plan, everything we do is based off of research, so just gonna share some really high-level tactics or findings that we have. From a domestic standpoint, in 2018, we welcomed 19.6 million visitors, generating 1.9 billion in visitor spending. Just the breakdown of that, almost over 2/3 were day visitors versus 1/3 overnight, but overnight was responsible for over 1 billion of that spending figure, so that obviously is where we put most of our focus. In terms of where they're coming from, California accounts for just a little under 50% of all of our visitation. That's way better than the statewide average is about 2/3 coming from California. So we're actually drawing more of a national audience than a lot of our compatriots. And then just breaking it down, the 4 of our top 5 markets are all California-based, so it is still a very important market for us. Really, in terms of what visitors are doing when they're coming here in terms of interest, we over-index to the U.S. average around really outdoor activities and then cultural. So that sort of speaks to our pillars of sort of outdoor adventure and high culture that really influences a lot of what Laura puts out into the marketplace. We also work with tourism economics to measure international visitation. In between the release of our outline to you a couple weeks ago and today, we received revised projections. The important thing to note is they revised all international projections down. There's growing concern of economic concerns for slowdown in the global economy, and inbound travel from China in particular got downgraded significantly due to a lot of everything that's going on. But 2019 is still shaping up to be the first year we will welcome over 1 million total international visitors into San Jose. And from a spending perspective, our top 5 markets remain Japan, followed by China, Australia, Brazil, and India. And then we look at research from MPI that they do on a quarterly basis. That's just sort of, they ask meeting and event planners how they're feeling about the industry. And the significant thing is year over year, there's growing anxiety about a potential slowdown in the next year, and they see their attendance growth slowing. Other trends include social issues impacting destination selection, including homelessness, has something that's been coming up, so that's something that we're definitely keeping an eye on. And then also issues around sustainability and corporate social responsibility, which is guiding our product development for our in-house team. Matthew?
Good afternoon, everybody. First, very briefly, we're going to touch on, if you go to the next slide, Ben. As Ben mentioned, we have seen a decrease in occupancy, not just for the month of August, but for year to date through the month of August. That's a negative 2.7%. And while rate is still higher year over year, if that occupancy decline continues, rate will likely follow. So that is something that at Team San Jose that we're thinking immediately, what can we do to reverse that trend? So what we have already done is completely reviewed and redeployed our salespeople. And we're essentially what we're doing is focusing more on self-contained meetings, which are the meetings that take place in the hotels and not at the center. The reason for that is that we have, due to the increasing needs for space that many of our customers have, the availability at the convention center is very tight. And so we're also looking at the repeat groups to see where we can move them to either better patterns for arrival or take back some of that space, be a little more stingy with the exhibit halls and the meeting space we have, since we need those to drive room nights. Big priority is focused on weekends, and we define weekends as Friday, Saturday, and Sunday night. So we are doing everything we can in offering incentive to groups to move to those dates as far as hotel rooms. And then really the next slide, I mentioned the utilization at the convention center, but here we see a breakout of when we look at the business that Team San Jose has booked since 2014. You can see on the left side where it says TSJ Managed Facilities, there hasn't been, there's been a decline, but it is much less pronounced than the decline on the direct in-house meetings, which reached its peak in 14 and 15 of 78 and 74,000 room nights. We have seen that drop in 2018 to only 40,000 room nights. And right now, today, where we stand on September 23rd, we're at 27,000 room nights. So that decline is the biggest decline that we're working on reversing. We did break out, for the purposes of this, the large sporting events. And so just for 19, the National Hockey League All-Star Game, the big number there, 15,239 in 2018, is actually the college football championship, because the way our reporting is that it puts all of the room nights into the very first, into the month of the first day of arrival. So those room nights are actually recorded in December of 2018, not January of 2019. And then just before that, we had the Super Bowl and WrestleMania. But the two biggest opportunities for us from a direct sales standpoint is more efficient utilization of the convention center and focusing on self-contained meetings to fill the hotels. Thank you.
Hi, thanks. For the record, Laura Shimolewski, Vice President, Marketing and Communications, Team San Jose. Ben, will you, next slide, please? Okay, so our objectives remain similar, but the strategy is changing a bit in a kind of exciting way. So we're going to continue to drive hotel room nights of bleisure and leisure audiences. And as you know, that's extending the stay and bringing families for people who are already coming for business and conventions. We're also going to support our sales team in targeting meeting planners, especially for the first times, those focusing on the ability to have weekend conferences and meetings. And we're also able to identify key need periods and help offset that. Next, please, Ben. Okay, so in leisure and bleisure. We now have a new strategy. This is the first, hard to do this. This is the first year that this technology is available. So through a company we've worked with before called Adara, we have the ability now to monitor the market in advance. So we can identify key need periods for our hotels. And when we layer group business on top of that, we have a really good idea of where we have the most opportunity to grow the bed tax. So we can hyper-target that two ways. We're working with our hotel partners who can give us a deal, so we have a value-driven message in the Bay Area for a specific weekend or month. But we can also, for the first time, target these same people through affinities. So we can use our local events and attractions and target based on that viewer's affinity. Next, please. Okay, something else I want to show you is we can do this through not only ways of targeting all those ads you see show up on your phone and on your website when you're surfing the web. We can also do it specifically on the OTAs. So for Expedia, this is one that works beautifully. We'll be doing this again this year. The return on ad spend for this was $160 to 1. So for one campaign, we added 15,000 room nights and totaling nearly $3 million. This is $3 million we wouldn't have before. This is all about driving incremental spend. So we'll be doing that again and targeting the exact same way I said, through affinity and through value. Next, please. These are some of our partners who will help deliver this kind of hyper-targeting across all your devices, across your phone, your computer, your laptop, your streaming video. Sojourn. Next, please. Adara, again, working with them predictively as well. Next, please. Also, we'll be, you'll see us on LinkedIn, Facebook, and Instagram, where people go looking for inspiration. The same type of targeting will apply, and people who are not looking actively for travel and booking travel to the Bay Area will not be reached. So we're really hitting, hopefully, the sweet spot. Next, please. Meeting planners, same thing. And in the meetings market, We'll do a new creative direction based on what Matthew was saying, focusing on in-house business and highlighting our hotels and the opportunities that are there. Next, please. Thanks, Ben. But that will mean also including our messaging in the endemic sites that people are used to seeing San Jose in, the meeting planner and conference sites, including Cal SAE, which are the local Society of Association Executives, as well as the same organization on a national level. Next, please. And industry publications, corporate and incentive meetings and travel. Next, please. Meeting and conventions. We'll do what we began doing a few years ago, which is geo-targeting major conferences like IMEX and Cal SAE, not only serving them a little message to come visit our booth. Next, please, Ben. To drink wine and win wine and visit with our salespeople. But also we're capturing their cell phone data and we'll continue to serve them San Jose messages and information for the remainder of the year. Next, please. We will also, using the vast database that our sales team has, we're able to target these folks on their LinkedIn, Facebook, and Instagram. So even when they're posting pictures of their kids, they may be getting San Jose messaging. Next, please. We're also upping on search as we're shifting our strategy. We know that showing up first on a list of search, especially for people who are looking to book a different kind of meeting, an in-house meeting becomes more relevant than ever. Also for our theaters. Next, please. Public relations, and as we know with the amount of visitation, next, please, that's coming into California, the PR strategy is going to shift to heavy in-state. That's not only the Bay Area, but that's Sacramento and Los Angeles, as well as San Diego. Next, please. And as Carrie mentioned earlier, we're very pleased in partnership with the city's Office of Economic Development to be offering San Jose merchandise at this shop on sanjose.org. We have offered it through our website online store. We currently offer it at the McHenry Convention Center. Our great partner, SJ Made, has offered it at various market locations throughout the city. The San Pedro Square Market pop-up featured it when Bobo Designs was there. Hudson News is doing it, and I'll tell you some good news about Hudson in a minute. And of course, we had a pop-up shop for the National College Football Championship. We've moved about 1,200 items. Hudson had success, so they came back and they wanted more merch. So we'll be selling colored t-shirts, tote bags, and for the first time featuring artist merchandise from locally made artists in Hudson News and on our website. So stay tuned for more. And I know I had to go quickly. If anybody wants to take a deeper dive, anytime. I'll bring all my papers. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for the report, folks. I'm going to go to my colleagues. I know there's a lot of people here in the audience. If you wanted to speak on any item, please fill out one of the cards and hand it to one of the staff members. Okay, Pam?
Thank you for the report. It looks like the projections are going to be down for 2019 and 20, and what do you attribute that primarily? What's the main reason that you see our bookings not being where you'd like them to be?
So there's a couple things at play here. So I think from 1920, from an occupancy standpoint, we're looking at a fairly full convention center. I think from a hotel room standpoint, we'll probably end the year a little bit behind where we were the previous year. Again, we had several large sporting events in the last year, which helped to kind of tip up that hotel room consumption with CFP and the NHL All-Star Game. I think overall, our bigger concern is the overall market in terms of hotels seeing that occupancy slow down. I think what we're seeing and kind of what we're hearing is there's a bit of a correction that's going to probably be happening in the market. Smith Travel Research, which monitors the hotel industry, was it about a 2% occupancy drop that they were forecasting for the end of 19?
For 2019, they do at this time see that recovering and being slightly up for 2020, as of a forecast we got last week. And it is occupancy driven, not rate driven.
Is that a nationwide trend, or is it specific to San Jose? And if it's specific to San Jose, why are people not coming here?
It's specific to the Bay Area, and I think it's so much of it is And I think some of it is linked just to general concerns around sort of where we are in terms of the overall economy and business travel. We've been very fortunate to have, the last 3 years, probably Tuesdays through Thursdays, running upper 90% occupancy rates with, astronomically great hotel rates. Very bad for anybody who has to make a last-minute decision to travel to San Jose on a Wednesday, but very good for the local economy. And I think with just some concern, you always see that business travel starts to slow a little bit, first and foremost, and I think we're just kind of seeing some of that softening as we're in a.
But no, what I'm trying to get at are event planners saying no to San Jose because of the restrictions on the size of the convention center, for example, or lack of space in our hotels or not
So-
enough
so-
things for people to do outside of the convention in San Jose.
So our top reasons for losing business, and this has been pretty steady for the last 4 or 5 years, is lack of availability, both with the convention center, and a lot of that is because people are trying to look at the same patterns, right? Everybody wants to come in on a Tuesday and leave on a Thursday. So that's where Matthew gets to talking about trying to find ways to incentivize people to look at shifting those patterns so we can stack more business.
Got it.
So it comes down to sort of availability of the convention center, but then also availability of the hotels, because when you're on that same midweek pattern, it's very tough to make a revenue management decision for a hotel to take rated group business as opposed to
Yeah, that makes sense.
business travel.
Thanks, that's it. Do you want me to move the report?
Sure.
Move to accept the report?
Second.
All right, Councilmember Perales?
Thank you. So while we're on this slide, I'll just say thank you so much for the report back. In comparison to the San Jose sort of T-shirts and other swag that Hudson used to sell, this blows it out of the water, and so there's no doubt in my mind why this is actually selling now, and the other ones probably sat there and collected dust. So I am super excited that they're asking for even more merch, and excited about seeing how this can grow in the future. The only question I had was back on the sales dashboard, kind of towards the beginning of the slides. As you find it, I'll talk about it. So we have a large share of our sales in the high tech, which is denoted as corporate and association. But then we have a separate association slice of the pie there, which is much, much smaller. So I am curious on feedback from yourselves. Is this something to be concerned about? How much of that is high tech, right, versus other corporations? And then what does it look like for us moving forward? I don't know what necessarily, right, a good pie breakup would look like. Is this the best we should be looking at, or would we want to be more diversified? So if you can speak to that, thanks.
So first off, I know we had an emphasis that was asked to be placed on high tech. So within that big pie chart, that some of that is corporate, some of it is also professional associations like the Optical Society of America's Conference on Lasers. So I'll say we would like to see a good balance of that association and corporate business, just because if we do hit a recession or a slowdown, the corporate business tends to go away, the association will stay. So that is something that we closely monitor. What we have seen more and more of the high-tech verticals within association come here, and some professional associations that are non-tech focused shrink, but we still book a lot of those, just not necessarily the citywides. More of those are direct into the hotels.
One of the issues that we are a little bit more tech dependent probably than we would like to be. Couple of the issues that creates is, one is they really want the middle of the week, so that a big Tuesday arrival, for example, which if you're a hotel, that essentially kills you on Sunday and Monday because nobody comes in Monday night for one night. So that's one issue. The other thing is the space requirements, that some of the build-outs are so complicated that they need the center for many more days than they're actually having their meetings. And that speaks to when we say the center is at capacity, we're having that challenge that a group may only have 2 or 3 nights where they're generating revenue, but may need the convention center for 10 nights.
Oh, wow.
And so that creates a problem for the hotels to fill while this is happening at the center. So We do want to see, we can't give you a perfect balance, but we definitely would like to see more association business. They tend to be a little more forgiving on the patterns, Sundays and Mondays, and don't have some of the requirements for space that these technology companies have.
That makes sense.
Appreciate the feedback. Thank you.
Thank you, and thank you for the report. I have a couple of things that I wanted to talk to Laura about. I had an experience where I flew into the airport, and I had to wait for my bags, and so I got a chance to go look at the old way of advertising, which are those little brochures that you see in, I know you're doing a lot on the marketing on the internet, but the old school, you get off a plane, you look at where you want to go. Believe it or not, I saw brochures for Disneyland, San Diego, San Francisco. I can go on, but the only thing I didn't see was a brochure for the city of San Jose. I'd like to see something, in that or at the information desk about, like a physical person brochure. Not everybody goes on. I honestly do. I'm old school. Whenever I go, I pick up those papers.
And I can check, they should have the Mercedes guide that we developed last year in partnership with Lufthansa and Mercedes, that nice big book, that should be given out at the information desks.
Okay.
But I can check that and make sure it is.
Yeah, well, that'd be great, because I didn't see it there. But it would be nice to have something smaller, like those, those fold-out maps and little things.
We go through them at the convention center, absolutely.
Yeah.
But thank you, and to your point, and I'll report back, we'll let you know what they're giving out at the desks themselves, because those brochure bins are pay to play, of
Yeah.
course, as you know. But we staff those desks, and we can share any information we choose.
Yeah.
So I will send you some examples, and we'll follow up to make sure they're doing that. It's a great point, thank you.
Thank you,
Yeah.
appreciate that. And I had one more point. I love tie clips and cufflinks. If we can get San Jose tie clips and cufflinks, that would be great. You'll appeal to the male, the well-dressed male. Anyway, I appreciate your work.
Thank you.
Self-compliment over there.
I'm not wearing a tie today. But anyway, well, thank you very much for your report. All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, on to the verbal report on the CSL study for the Convention Center, South Hall site.
Great, so the report you just heard tees up
Yes.
this next one very nicely. So we have Nancy Klein, and we have John Katz, our consultant from CSL, Convention Sports and Leisure.
It should be on here. And, Kim, do you know if it was loaded here?
Everything's loaded, should be in the same place. Add shares,
Here, you go right ahead.
Want me to pull it?
add shares, use presentations.
She's talking about.
Presentations.
It's not just San Jose.
Certified date, maybe?
Presentations.
There we go.
CET presentations. And then should be on the date. 2019.
There we go. Thank you, Carrie. Yeah. Thank you for your patience. Nancy Klein, Office of Economic Development, and I'm here with CSL, John Katz. We are excited to bring to you, you have a brief memo, but John will share information. It's very much a perfect segue from the previous report onto what will happen next at the convention center and the site of the tent on the back side of the convention center. With that, John, please.
Yeah, wonderful, thank you. Okay, good. So you heard some really strong numbers regarding the convention center, its occupancy, its use, its event mix. And that, to us, begs the question, where do we go for the next 5 years, 10 years, 15 years? It's a competitive industry. The attendees are changing. How do we make sure we maintain and ideally enhance our market capture? And so we've developed, at the request of the city, something I call a future study for the convention industry. One of the areas we look at is kind of parachuting into the district and asking ourselves, what does a convention attendee see when they're standing at the front door of the convention center and they're taking a client out to dinner or they're walking around to their hotels? And the little dots there represent restaurants and bars and cafes and nightlife. And it's a fairly robust inventory that exists today in San Jose. You see the SOFA district is starting to emerge. We really love that. San Pedro Square is a walkable environment. So we're kind of moving in the right direction. We don't have the density we'd ideally like, particularly after hours, but it is moving in the right direction. We know there's 3,000 housing units coming in, roughly, I believe that's right. You saw in an earlier presentation, the university presence coming in, which creates more energy, obviously Google. So we're creating a destination I think is going to be able to accommodate increases in convention activity. In fact, I've said this many times, if you walk around this district and then you go to Moscone Center in San Francisco and walk around that same radius, I like your package better than San Francisco's even in terms of a walkable, comfortable, safe environment. So we're starting from a fairly decent base, and it seems to be improving relative to the district. Then we do some diagnostics within the convention center itself. And you saw some of the numbers that Ben was presenting showing occupancy and use of the building. We're running in calendar 2018, 69% occupancy. And in a convention center, it's hard to get past 70. You have events that move out on a Tuesday and then the next guy moves in on a Friday. That Wednesday, Thursday, you can't sell a convention center for 2 days. It just doesn't work. And I appreciate what they're doing in terms of managing and yield managing the calendar. That'll help. We also have holidays and other down periods where it's hard to get past 70. So we're pushing up against maximum occupancy for the convention space that we have today, which is that indicator that maybe we're turning away some business that we'd like to keep. I'm going to skip ahead one more, and I'll come back to that. This is a plot of the actual use of the exhibit hall for every day in 2018. And the darker shaded areas are the blocks of 4 days where the hall's available. We only have 7. In the entire year, there's only 7 blocks where I have just 4 days where the building's available. And very importantly, only one of these blocks exists when downtown had 1,000 rooms available for the convention itself. So we literally have this, as was said earlier, fairly few dates available in the convention center. And when you compound that with lack of hotel availability, we've only got one period they could sell into in 2018 where they could actually add another event with room night requirements. So what happens when the room nights are not there and the hotels are starting to charge $450, $500 midweek and we can't get the room blocks? The good news is we've seen on the left hand side here, the room night generations stay fairly consistent, but somebody had mentioned that association business kind of coming and going. We see if you look at the bottom blue bar on the left, you can see 2013, 14, 15, the convention business. That's mostly your associations. And you can see 16, 17, 18, it's lower. At the same time, the conferences have gone up in the last 3 years. And what's happened is we're really moving into this high-tech world, and you can see the revenue data for the building has gone up dramatically. Matter of fact, if you look at 2014, the number of conferences that existed in the convention center was a little higher than the number of conferences that they hosted in 2018. But you can see in the bar the amount of revenue they're generating with slightly fewer events. So they are going after the Apples and the Googles and the Facebook. They come in, they spend a ton of money in the building, and they're able to maintain a fairly consistent room night pattern. I love what was said earlier, that there's some risk in that. We go through a recession, some issues with the tech industry, and we can lose that traction. So we're kind of playing with fire a little bit by not having these association businesses. But what Team San Jose recognizes is we can't get that association business, the good old-fashioned, insurance underwriters association, because they're not going to pay $400 or $500 a night midweek, even if they could get the rooms. They're still charging, that high. So they've pivoted, I'd like to say, in a pretty good way to generate additional revenue, maintain occupancy, and keep the room nights up. We also look at how you compare, where are you at relative to your competitive set in terms of space. And you can see San Jose has roughly 251,000 square feet of sellable space. That's your exhibit space, your meeting space, and your ballroom space. The exhibit hall is about 143,000 square feet. And that ranks fairly low relative to your competitive set. And we also note that in a couple of years, Seattle's going to double their space, if not more. We note that Sacramento has just approved and has designed an enhancement with some additional space. Austin, Texas is looking to double their space. So we're in a world where we rank fairly low in terms of space, and your competitors continue to look to invest. So now I've got another indicator that maybe we're turning away business because we don't have enough space. I also understand that this is, and this is really, really important, this is not just kill them with space. Double the box, just keep building more and more and more. Very importantly, and I'd say almost as important as space, are the trends in the building. And are we reinventing the concourse area to have open space learning, which the corporate events are looking at, outdoor space? We just did a customer advisory board meeting for your convention center, and one of the biggest topics was augmented and virtual reality space in the convention center, which, 2 years ago, you would have never heard any of this. So there are a variety of features within the building that you're going to have to invest in, even if you had no square footage of space, to stay current in the industry. So where are we at in terms of recommendations and findings? We're looking at about a 70 to 100,000 square foot expansion of multi-purpose exhibit space and some additional meeting space of around 20,000 square feet. That's going to set you on a course for the next 5, 10, 15 years in terms of your overall building. And we also would love a little bit of outdoor space and some of that trend forward space within the complex. That won't do you any good unless you add hotel inventory. We'd like to see 1,000 to 1,500 rooms new downtown. We know there are some coming in. You got maybe 400 or 500 that are slated to come in. We expect another 300 or 400 to come in over the next 5 years or so, just by market forces. That leaves us with a gap of about 600 that we have targeted for a new headquarter hotel to support the investment in the convention center. Just for note, the customer advisory board wanted 800. So we're in that 600, maybe 800 rooms for a headquarter hotel to support the existing convention center and any investment you make going forward. And lastly, as you plan for the future of the convention district, that linkages to the SOFA district, that linkage to San Pedro Square, all those urban walkability and signage and landscaping, those are very important to consider. So when I look at the project, I don't just consider it this little box of a center and a hotel. I look at it as the entire destination, which is, as I say, improving. Last slide, when we talk about these convention center hotels, I think it's important for everybody to recognize that in most markets, when you're talking about building that large of a hotel, the developer's going to have a hard time generating a return on investment. There's steel construction, a lot of lobby space, a lot of load-in, load-out space. So there's this disconnect between what the city wants to support their economic impact and what a developer can afford based on the return on investment. So what we see cities all across the country do, they look at low-cost land leases. Maybe they develop some of the parking for the hotel. Maybe they develop a portion of the hotel meeting space, various other tax incentives that can potentially be used to create the return on investment that works for the developer. And at the same time, and this is really important as well, we don't give that away for free. We go to the developer and we say, we want something called a room block agreement that says Team San Jose or any other city entity can go to the hotel and say, I want 500 of your 600 rooms midweek at a reasonable rate, and I want to do that 10 times a year. That is a handcuff that is in iron, and it's very impactful because the last thing you want to do is have a 600-room hotel where the rates go back to 400 or 500 and you're stuck at square one. So that room block agreement has tremendous economic value for you, which is why you're providing those various incentives. That's how that economic structure works. That's it.
That, John and staff are available for questions, comments.
And if I could just clarify, it's also our intention to take this report to the full council. We would like to cross-reference it for October 29th. I think you can see we've done some preliminary work on the need for a headquarters hotel as well as convention center expansion. And so we'll be looking for your general feedback and then councils about, whether and how we should keep this work going, given it can take many, many years, as you can imagine, to plan for this kind of expansion.
Okay, Councilmember Perales?
Yeah, thank you for.
Yeah, my pleasure.
Sorry. Bring this closer. Thank you very much for the report. I think we have a tremendous opportunity here. I appreciate your feedback on comparisons for what we have going on in our downtown and what you see in some of the other areas. But we definitely know we are at capacity, whether it's with hotel space or our convention center. And as we just heard sort of in the report before, we have, and it's a, catch-22, it's great to have all the tech business that we have coming in, but at the same time, it would be great to have capacity to build in other areas as well. But we're sort of limited right now, and I would hate to get to a point where we're saying well, we want to turn down some of the tech business because we want to bring in some more of the association versus having capacity to actually grow both in tech and in association in other areas. So I think this is a good opportunity, and I'll make the motion to accept the report and then cross-reference this to full council
Second.
For October 29th, if you can.
for October 29th.
Okay, great. So I know that you were looking for comment. I'm very supportive of going down this avenue. I like exploring the ideas of we'll build out parking, or we'll lease you this, space, and you provide the hotels and manage the hotels and maybe, and that piece of the convention center. What I don't want us to do is to get into long-term debt servicing. I mean, we've lived through the Hayes Mansion, and I don't want to live through that again. My only cautionary flag would be, I think we have spent quite a bit of money buying this space, and I would not favor going into debt so that somebody else could build a hotel. Anything up to that point, offering them the space, maybe something else, but not going into long-term, heavy-duty debts with taxpayer dollars, because we're already in, I think, 40-some-odd million on the convention center purchase already. And I want to make sure that we're not strapping our, budgets in the future if something goes unexpectedly in this endeavor. So that's my only cautionary thought. Yeah.
One quick response, and John, of course, will say that part of the future scope, if, as directed by council, would be different options that could be then proofed out in the market and included for discussion in an RFQ, RFP, which is a common practice for other communities and how they go about working with a private entity.
Yeah, I prefer to go out to RFQ, not an RFP, because I want to know what the market's willing to accept first. I think in a negotiation, whoever speaks first loses, at least it's been my experience. And so let's see what somebody's willing to build. Let's see what somebody's willing to invest to build this structure. And then go into this backwards rather than going into it, hey, here's what we can offer you, if that makes any sense.
Makes perfect sense.
Okay, all right, thank you. All in,
Oh,
you
I have a
want to
comment.
say-
Yeah,
okay.
yeah.
Councilman.
I said no, and then I said yes. So, so I have a question. If you could kind of connect the dots for me a little bit on, we're about to go into, like, the market is softening, and then we're about to undertake this effort to expand the convention center, but also to around a 600 visit rooms for a hotel. And that hotel space is focused on within 1/2 mile of the convention center. Can you walk me through that linkage, that we're about to go down this road, just as the market is softening, money's tightening up? And then I have a follow-up.
Yeah, I can take that from the perspective of investment in the convention industry. Relative to other city priorities, it's the city's focus, but relative to the convention industry, we know that it's very cyclical. And we know that the demand for convention space, the associated attendance and economic impact will flow with the economy. And whenever we have a recession, it's going to go down. We know that for a fact. I will also say, though, that structurally, San Jose is very, very strong. When we come out of a recession, we're still going to have the highest rates in the region by a long shot. We're still going to have demand for the convention center. So when I look at the notion of a business investment long-term, I'm less concerned about what's going to happen in the next 2-year recession and more concerned about, is our product poised for the long run, 5, 10, 15, 20 years to be successful? And what we're suggesting to you is, given the diagnostics that we've done, you have a very strong product and can support some additional space as long as the hotel industry goes with it. Now, we'll have those downturns, no doubt about it, but overall, long run, it's going to be a strong investment. Now, from a developer standpoint, if you put your developer's hat on, one of the best things in the world you can do is plan, fund, and build during a recession. Construction costs are lower, and when you come out, you're coming out in the growth period. So when I talk to my clients, I'm almost saying, get going. Recession's gonna be coming in the next 24 months. Now's the time to be getting this all figured out. So I'm not concerned about that. The cycle is real, and it can be painful, as you've seen, 10, 12 years ago, it was incredibly painful. But that doesn't scare us away from making long-term strategic investments.
And Nancy, would the, sort of our overall hotel capacity be included in the study moving forward? And I bring that up, and also looking that it's 2 miles to Muni, 3 miles to the fairgrounds, the Sharks Ice is desperate for hotels, right? So we have sort of this overall ecosystem separate from the convention business around hotels and the need around that.
Yes, council member, thank you for the question. Excuse me. We will be and are in continuing conversations with other developers in other locations. They're very aware of how high our rack rates are, as well as how low a room nights there are available. So others in the convention and hotel industry are still looking for sites. Some of them in the downtown, some of them in North San Jose, some of them in South San Jose, some of them out by Valley Fair. So there are numerous folks who also share this view and will be even more interested as they know we're contemplating an expansion of the convention center along with the expansion of ICE, et cetera. So it's something we're very much paying attention to and agree with you. And just a quick note, I realized I didn't mention that Blage Zalalic has been doing a tremendous amount of work with John on this project. She is right now in the emergency office and attending, and not here, but she's done a great job, and just wanted you to know that.
It's for training, there's not an emergency.
Thank you.
Good clarification. All right, and unless there's any other questions, all in favor?
Aye.
All right, that motion passes unanimously. On to item number 4, which is the City Council Policy number 3, Disadvantaged Business Enterprise Program.
Thank you, Chair and committee members. Matt Kano, Director of Public Works, and with me is Christopher Hickey, Division Manager overseeing our Office of Labor Compliance. So we're in front of you today to talk about what is currently Council Priority number 3 on the Council Priority list, Disadvantaged Business Enterprise. Our recommendations today are to ask you to approve our work plan for the phased implementation of what we're calling the Public Works Contracting Program, and ultimately cross-references.
That may be too close to your.
Oh, sorry.
Like,
I'm excited.
Okay, there
All
we
right.
go.
There we go.
Sorry about
All
that.
right, no, I'm good. So we are, and ultimately cross-references to council. Now I'm really sensitive to how close I am to the mic. Approve, and then approve removal of this council priority from the council priority list. However, I want to be very clear, and we'll do that throughout our presentation, that we plan on reporting back to CED on an annual basis, ideally as part of the current report that it goes annually that talks about local and small business participation. Because all these things that we're doing are great, we're confident in them, and we love them, but the data is going to tell how successful we are, and we're always going to want to look at the data to continue to tweak our program over time. So as a little background, again, Council Priority 3, on June 25th, 2017, we discussed with this committee a two-phased approach. One is to build our network of contractors and educate them, and then also expand the ability for those contractors to participate in our programs. And then our last report to your committee was January of this year. We focused on, and Chris is going to go into a little detail in the rest of the slides on the program elements, but our program elements focused on three things. One is to bring more awareness to the opportunities we have with the City of San Jose, a $4 billion capital improvement program that could even grow to be bigger in the next budget. But the awareness of those opportunities for folks that are local and small businesses and regular sized businesses too in San Jose isn't what it should be, and to really expand that awareness, to make our processes easier and more understandable through education, and also to change the way we do business to create more opportunities for local small businesses to be competitive for large and small city work, for major and subcontracting. And so with that, I'll turn it over to Chris to get into some more details of our recommended program.
Thank you, Chris Hickey. Probably a little too close too. So part of the Public Works contracting program is the Public Works Academy. The Public Works Academy is a series of seminars that are 6 parts. They're about 2 hours long. And the seminar portions and the courses speak about procurement, how to find the opportunities, contracts, the pre-construction, construction, and post-construction phases, as well as prevailing wage. There's actually been 2 seminars that have been completed with 42 graduates. And some of the first picture on the left-hand side, there's actually quite a lot of couples, married couples, both running the business. One point that I'd like to set out on the far right picture is actually there's a family in that one. So the gentleman sitting on his knee, and he has 2 sons. One of them was sick on that one, but it was a family event for them. It was to build this longevity of the contracting business between generations, and they have a great story. So with that, we also did contractor outreach. So one of the issues that we had found was, we are a very large city, and we had the set it and forget it. We just put it up on this website and say, if you're looking for opportunities, just use the website. With that, it was a change, which is we need to get out into the community, and we need to let them know how to do these things, where to find the opportunities, and help them through that process. And so we actually had 7 events, 6 opportunity awareness events, and 1 prevailing wage workshop. The opportunity awareness events focused on getting contractors who had never worked with public works to understand, as Matt said, that we have a $4 billion CIP program, and we have the bond measure money coming up, but also this is where you're going to find it. So getting them signed up on BidSync at the time, getting them signed up on our new Eprocurement system, Bidingo. To get the word out, staff mailed copies of the flyers to 5,000 plus construction companies who maintain a San Jose business license, as well as sending it out to 1,200 construction companies on the Caltrans certified DBE list and through the SCORE Association. And actually a huge partner for us were the ethnic chambers, the Vietnamese American Chamber of Commerce, the Hispanic Chamber of Commerce, and the Silicon Valley Black Chamber of Commerce. There's another slide too that I can show that we'll go through. So, yes, online tutorials. So another factor that we have is the city's standard time for business is between 7 o'clock in the morning until about 5:30 in the afternoon. But a lot of businesses, a lot of construction businesses, they start well before that, and then they have to go back to their offices and they do an additional 5 to 6 hours of work for payrolls and setting up plans and schedules. So we need to be able to provide them with support on some of the larger topics that we have. So prevailing wage, how to go through our Bidingo process, what's the difference between a minor public works contract and a major public works contract. So we made a series of videos that are available on YouTube. Each video is about 2 to 3 minutes in length, and they're on very specific key items. So the contractors do not have to go through 15 different videos. They can just say, I would like to know a little bit more about this one specific section. So some of the videos are on prevailing wage, bidding, insurance, bonding, some e-procurement questions as well. So speaking of e-procurement, the city actually just transitioned, at least for public works construction projects. The city manager in August 2018 authorized the city council authorized the city manager to execute an agreement with Bidingo. So through that process, staff in the city, we tried to look at what were some of the barriers to working with a previous e-procurement platform. One of them, which is the example at the bottom of the page, was that when going on the original Bedingo e-procurement, each contractor would have to set up service codes. There's about 8,000 of them. So take, for example, fencing. You'd have to click fencing for wood fencing, iron fencing, steel fencing, all of the fencings, where staff actually reduced those codes from 8,000 to 200. So contractors know what they're supposed to do. They only have to click a couple of boxes instead of searching through a list of 8,000. So, as I stated before, we have general outreach in the city, but what we needed to do here was to build and develop more relationships. So with the local chambers and the business associations, we've worked with Work to Future and SCORE and the Small Business Development Center. We also work with the city's businessownerspace.com organization. I'd like to throw out, again, a big thank you to these three chambers who've been an instrumental part of the success of this program so far, but the Silicon Valley Vietnamese American Chamber of Commerce, the Hispanic Chamber of Commerce, as well as the Black Chamber of Commerce. So we can do all the outreach and education, but there's also needs to be some other barriers that the city has and some changes to our policies. And so with that, we have these 4 different policy changes that we have made. So with the passing of Measure S in November of 2018, the Procurement Modernization, we were able to update the Muni Code, the municipal code, to allow for more flexibility, more opportunities. Public Works took this in September 10th to the City Council, which increased our minor public works from $100,000 to $600,000. That allows us a lot more flexibility in the way that we procure and how many projects we procure. One of the major changes that we have made is a new procurement method. Sorry, I jumped over a spot. Local and small preference. So as well in the Muni Code changes with the increase of the threshold from 100,000 to 600,000. We also have wording that we attached in there that has local and small preferences to be applied to minor public works. Right now on the evaluation period, it's about 5%. So for example, if a contractor's bid comes in at $100,000 and they're small and local, we would evaluate that as $95,000. Now, if they were to be the low bidder on that, it would be noted, and they would still get that $100,000 contract. So we're not lowering their contract award amount, but through our evaluation, we will be taking into consider a local and small preference. So, in addition, we also have done a procurement modification, and it's actually just a new procurement method. It has a goal of increasing local and small contractors through a pool of pre-qualified contractors that can compete for smaller groups of projects. So a couple of weeks ago, I think there's 6 now that have actually closed. So we have a 2019 minor public works mechanical projects, electrical projects, plumbing projects, park projects, building projects, and minor street repairs. So this is a contractor pool. They apply for that. As it goes in, when we have a project that fits a certain scope of work, it'll go directly to that pool and to all the parties in that pool. It will not go to the masses on Bedingo. It'll just go to that pre-selected, pre-qualified pool of candidates. So another big change is government experience. When you're working with the city and you're placing a bid on one of our city projects, you must show proof of 3 projects similar in scope and similar in size. 2 of those need to be with a governmental agency. And so the issue comes in, you have to be awarded a project, you have had to work with a governmental agency. It seemed like a chicken and egg. So what we've done with this pre-qualified list is, should you go through the Public Works Academy and take all 6 courses and attend all 6 courses, take a 24-question quiz at the end and pass that, you can actually use that certificate in lieu of the government experience work waiver to allow contractors who may have not ever worked on it to still be able to participate. Also, with the bonding and insurance support, typically, when you are, contractors need to have multiple bonds and a rather large insurance policy. So by these contractor pools, we're allowing contractors to first apply and bid on these minor public works projects. And once they're guaranteed the contract, that is when they would be required to provide the bonding insurance, or the bonding as well as the insurance. So it allows contractors not to put up working capital up front without the guarantee of a contract on the back end of that. So those are some of the major changes that we have made to the policies. We believe that these policy changes, as well as the Public Works Academy, it increases the variety of the number of contracts, increases the number of opportunities, as well as increasing the number of potential contractors that are awarded contracts. It limits the competition while also maintaining competitiveness among the pre-qualified contractor pools. So we did not want to leave you without other program alternatives as well. So there are other programs that other cities have taken on. This program is from the city of Los Angeles. It's a minority-owned, women-owned, and other business enterprise program. It requires prime and general contractors to make good faith efforts to solicit bids from these groups, but there's no requirement that they accept any of those bids or to use any of those bids. It also focuses on subcontracting and not development of the business as a general or prime contractor. And that is the focus of the Public Works contracting program, which is to develop these contractors so that, yes, they have experience on our minors, but as we build them up, build their capacity, they can start bidding on some of our larger projects. These programs also have increased contractor requirements for certifications. So the actual individual who would like to be certified as a minority, women-owned, or other business enterprise need to provide personal and private information, including personal tax returns, proof of ethnicity and/or gender. So the city of Los Angeles, their program that requires just good faith outreach, as well as the certification, has approximately 10 full-time employees to oversee the certification and compliance. We have estimated, Public Works has estimated 5 positions to be able to take on the application process, the review, certifications, and ongoing compliance, should the committee as well as the council decide on a program alternative. So again, a Public Works recap, Public Works contracting program recap. Our program focuses on outreach, engagement, and education. We've also made multiple policy changes for greater access and more opportunities with fewer barriers. There still are barriers, but we've lessened them. And then this program is flexible enough to allow us to change our procedures, change the educational program, and add in other aspects that the committee, council, and Public Works sees as necessary. And with that,
and I just want to add one more thing. One of the questions we received from the committee, I think it was in January when we were here last, was how can we make sure to sustain this if we're recommending a program ongoing? And so the good news is that Mayor and Council were supportive in this last budget of us hiring a senior analyst, a management position to oversee training. And interviews were held last week, so we'll have that person on board soon. That person will be about 50% internal staff training and 50% focusing on external contractor training. So that's how we're kind of able to sustain this ongoing.
Wonderful. Any of my colleagues wish to speak on this topic? Councilmember Perales?
Yeah, thank you, Chair. And thank you, staff. I'm supportive of the recommendations moving forward and of being able to actually remove this item from council priority, which is a win. I'll ask for one caveat, which is that we hear back, at least on an annual basis, but that we can sort of eliminate this from the priority list. It's always good when we could do that. I know there's not a cross-reference to full council, but it was my understanding, right, if we're removing something from the priority list, that we would have to do that?
Yes, we learned that after we'd finalized this memo, so we do need to ask you that you
I'll make that
cross-reference
in the motion. So I'll ask you now, but I know it'll come up then at the full council, but just your response to the 7 recommendations listed in Vice Mayor Jones's letter, if you've had a chance to digest that.
Sure, we actually put that as our response as attachment C, a table on the back, and so,
there it is.
let's see, items 1, 2, 3, 4, and 7, we feel that we've actually implemented already. And item 5 is increased access to data across the department. We definitely agree in concept that needs to be done, whether it's Public Works, Finance Department, ESD, City Manager's Office. We need to share data on contracting more than we do today. And so we're committing in this memo to continue to try and do that better. And then regarding promoting, number 6, the mentorship program, we're agreeing with the recommendation to do a full-fledged mentoring program, like to do it really, really well, takes resources, but we can do versions of mentoring programs, and we'll be implementing that right away as part of our opportunity awareness events.
Would you suggest that what he's actually talking about then be referred to sort of a budget discussion? To actually implement?
Yeah, to actually implement number 6, a full-fledged program would require additional budget resources, but in concept, that's what part of the opportunity awareness events that we are hosting is to allow contractors to meet with some subcontractors, and we do have a staff person that'll be managing those events, and so we talked about, can we format those a little differently to be a little bit more mentoring meetups? We don't have the resources to track those mentorships as they go, and so that could be a budget request, but we can definitely partially implement this without additional money, so we'll.
Okay,
yes.
that's helpful. So then I'll make the motion to accept staff's recommendations here. Ask our city manager to help me to cross-reference it to
October 8th.
October 8th as well. And then I appreciate the attachment of recommendation. It sounds like the only one from our vice mayor's memo that may need further discussion, and we can wait till then to sort of discuss it, that you feel you can partially implement it, but that the other part of that, if need be, then be referred to the budget discussions.
Sure.
So, that's the motion.
Great. Can I get a second?
Second.
All right. Councilmember Crum.
Yeah, I just have a clarification on the motion. So when this comes back on an annual basis, would that incorporate an update on the outreach and maybe not mentorship, maybe we'll call it speed dating, right? It's a little kind of speed dating instead, but to report back on these issues, because I think these are the issues that Vice Mayor Jones raises are really important and will ultimately lead to a successful program, which we all want.
Yeah, and I'm sorry I didn't specify that in the motion, but yes, I would like that obviously on an annual basis and in line with what Councilmember Esparza is stating.
Agreed, and we would incorporate that into the annual report that we bring to your committee right now on small and local businesses. It's actually coming in the next one's coming in a few months, but at the one after that, we'll have metrics on how we're doing here and everything you said.
Okay, thank you.
Good. I was actually looking for metrics myself. I'd like to see how many people go through the program and then graduate and then actually get contracts. So it would be nice to know if your program has been successful in actually getting a contract.
Yes, we are definitely starting to track that, and now that we have the pre-qualification pools, boxes of submittals that were in staff's office last week, we'll be able to start tracking which of those actually attended the academy, which of them pre-qualified for work, and which of them actually got work. There's big trainings that the team is leading with all city staff that are involved in awarding contracts in the next few weeks to let them know how to use this new process. So in about 6 months, we'll have really good metrics on this, and what we do have by October 8th, the council will report as part of our presentation.
So I had a couple questions, like these contractors now, let's say that they do pavement or they do sheetrock. Can they now put it on their website that, hey, I'm approved vendor for the city of San Jose, or is it something that they're not allowed to say?
No, they can definitely say that.
Okay. So this is something that I've been asking for years, believe it or not. even when I was the chairman of the Small Business Development Committee before I was on council, but not necessarily for just government contracting, but contracting in general. It would be nice in the future to know, like, a lot of people get snookered, or, you know, I don't know how to better say this, but kind of conned with contractors that promise that they know how to go through the city's labyrinth, sometimes, bureaucracy, and getting, you know, home remodels done, or you know, say expansions or roofing or whatever it is, you know, these, and then they often, the owners of the people who hire them end up getting stuck with long waiting periods, and sometimes they get taken. I'd love to see this kind of program expanded into the building and planning department, where if somebody can take this program on how to get your permit, how to get, you know, how to work through putting a restaurant, something, and then we could say that these people have actually taken the program, and that way, when the consumers go out to hire contractors for their home remodels or their kitchens or whatever, they will say, they'll be, hey, I'm proud I've taken this thing. And you can even charge these contractors for it, is what I said in the past, but it seems like we're heading the right direction.
Sure. We definitely, we'll talk internally more about that, because I definitely understand where you're going. I want to be also cognizant of right now, they're pre-qualifying. If they're a pre-qualified contractor for us, that means they have submitted in a request for proposals. We've vetted, we've at least looked at their experience and qualifications and feel that they're
I have a
pre-qualified
comment.
to work with us. But as that continues to evolve, we can definitely see how to work with other departments in the community to make more awareness of these contractors.
Thank you.
Ju-
Councilmember Foley.
Just a clarification, just because they're taking the class, they are not being certified as approved by the city. They have to have submitted a project to you and been accepted in that terms, because any unscrupulous contractor that you're referencing could take the class and then say they're approved by the city. We don't want that. We want someone who's taken the class, which would help them, but really the class helps them to go through the process. And then once they're accepted and approved through the process, that's when you're saying they could use our name. Is that?
Well, they're actually, they would be,
Or if you're not, that's what I'd like
yeah,
to
we
see.
have to talk about how they use our name. We will talk internally about that. But if
Yeah.
you're correct, there's taking a class, which anybody can take our class, and we actually want to open it up to everybody. And then there's our actual formal request for proposals, pre-qualification program, and that does mean we have pre-qualified them to be bidders on our projects. Now, that's different from vouching for them, but we can
Right.
talk internally about, you know, how to portray that better.
Okay.
So there is a distinction, Councilmember, between endorsing and having somebody identify that they've taken a program through the city. Because we need to be careful with regard to
Absolutely.
the endorsement part of it, but we can't allow them to make a factual statement that they've taken a course with the city of San Jose.
Yes, absolutely. I appreciate that, the difference. Thank you.
Yes, that's all I was saying. Allow them to say I've taken a class, that's all. Anyway, thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? No, I think, all right. Thank you very much. And I didn't actually get any members of the public. Did I miss you guys? Did you guys want to speak on anything? No? Okay. All right. I don't see any public cards.
Last
Oh, do we have
item.
another?
You have the building. Yeah.
Sorry. Yes. Item number,
That's why they're here.
yeah. Jumped the gun there. Item number 5, the California Building Standards Code adoption.
I know, we got excited. It's hard to be last.
I thought we were tracking well.
Last but not least, we're glad you guys are here.
Thank you.
This is important.
Yes,
Very
of course,
important.
very.
Good afternoon, Chair and Council members. I'm James Sun, Deputy Director of Planning, Building, and Code Enforcement. I'm joined by Assistant Fire Chief Reggie Williams and Fire Marshal Hector Estrada. We are here today to ask the committee to accept staff's recommendation for council consideration and approval on adopting the 2019 California codes and local amendments regarding certain design requirements, fire sprinkler regulations, and other building requirements. Also, there should be a separate memo from Fire Department and their specific amendments for approval on their 2019 Fire Code as well. Supplemental. The California Building Code, commonly known as Title 24, is updated by the California Building Standards Commission every 3 years and are based on 2018 International Building Code published by International Code Council, which is ICC. Local jurisdictions must adopt the California building standards for local enforcement within 180 days of publication and may amend the standards as necessary to address the local geologic, topographical, and climatic conditions. The 2019 California codes are effective January 1st, 2020. In the city's municipal code, it references building codes also under Title 24 and fire code under Title 17. For this code cycle, we are looking at building, residential, electrical, mechanical, plumbing, historical, and existing building codes. However, for both green building standards and energy efficiency standards have been adopted through the REACH Code ordinance. In addition to the code adoption, the proposed ordinance will update previously adopted amendments and to match current code language and cross-reference it. It will also update the municipal code to reflect the 2019 California codes. Building and fire staff work closely with other Bay Area jurisdictions by participating in the Tri-Chapter Uniform Code Program and Santa Clara County Fire Group Committee meetings to ensure uniformity in application of these local amendments. For this code cycle, there's no additional amendments to the 2019 building codes. However, staff is recommending to maintain 4 previously adopted building amendments, which are increased seismic separation for essential and large assembly buildings, requirement for special inspection for isolated footings with concrete strength greater than 2,500 pounds per square inch, disallow the use of gypsum and diagonal leading bracing, and to limit the use of Portland cement plaster and other non-structural materials. Now I'd like to pass it over to Hector to present fire code amendments.
Thank you, James. It is our recommendation that the council adopt the 2019 California Fire Code, adopt the 2019 California Fire Code standards for highly toxic and toxic gases with amendments which will replace the toxic gas current ordinance as amended in 17.78, to retain and update local amendments to match the 2019 CFC language and references. We also recommend that we retain the current amendments to firefighter breathing air replenishment systems, sprinkler system requirements, and these are current ordinances that are working for our communities right now. Fire safety standard during construction, and these were mainly specified and derived from after the Santana Row fire. Next slide. And additional amendments that are new. So we are now covering 3D printing for additive material manufacturing. This provides clarity of the code requirements distinguishing this from other similar processes. It's a new industry and there's a lot of new occurrences of that in the city. Lithium battery storage, we are updating the quantity of the amount that can be stored within facilities. Fire suppression, detection, and alarm systems are being brought to the 2019 NFPA standards. And these are basically fire suppression systems, detection and alarm systems, so there's a group there. Plant extraction processing, which is in the California Fire Code, but we've modified them to be in alignment with the San Jose Municipal Code 6.88, the cannabis regulations, so that the framework is in place in case there's a move in the future by council. And that's it.
This concludes our presentation. We'll be happy to take any questions you might have.
Thank you for the presentation. Any comments? No? Okay, I have one quick question. It does say to eliminate things that don't match. What are you eliminating? In your supplemental, it says,
Oh, with
Section 5, it says, update municipal code to eliminate local amendments to previous fire codes.
So in some cases, there was a portion that was replaced, so specifically with regard to some of the hazardous materials, the ordinance was actually being replaced, so it's eliminating one and replacing it with another.
Okay.
And then there were changes in the amendments that basically looked to match them, so that there wouldn't be a really difficult to understand distinction between what we're currently asking for and what we're, does that answer your question?
Yes, but it obviously doesn't eliminate the stuff that we adopted locally, right?
Oh, no, no.
Okay,
That's
all
where,
right.
my reference to those things that are working for our community right now. So those things that are working for
Yeah.
us, we're going to retain. And
Yeah, it would have been better if you spelled it out, like, hey, we're going to exchange section 45 with the new code 47 or something.
we did a bit of that as well.
Okay.
I believe that's in the supplemental memo from
Yeah,
fire.
yeah, I honestly, I didn't read, I must have just saw this, it must have just come out recently, because I didn't get through this one.
And I'd have to apologize for that. That was my fault. I
Okay.
was late.
And so, my other question is this, I get the kind of complaints sometimes that, let's say that you submit your plan before we vote on this, and then you start your building, then an inspector comes, and then all of a sudden, the building codes have a new inspector, the new fire inspector comes. I mean, how do you reconcile that? I've run into a case recently where somebody was told one thing, and then later on, and another inspector told them something completely different, and could have set them back $20,000.
So I mean, new code is effective on January 1st, 2020. So it's based on building application date. So if they submit January 1st, then they have to comply with the 2019 codes. But if they submitted prior to that, it will be based on the current code. So if they have a permit in this year, then definitely there should be no issue with
Yeah.
applying a new code because it's not effective.
I appreciate that. I'm hoping everybody on the inspection team understands that as well.
And I'll speak to the second thing, because that's actually a little bit different situation, and that is, there are those occurrences when there's a different, there may be a difference when they're out in the field, an inspector's out in the field, and those are the things that we're striving to try to make improvements on, to make sure that consistency, clarity, and a clear understanding of exactly what you're going to be required to do when you start on a project is exactly what you're expected to do. So
Yeah.
that there's an internal process being examined to make sure that we can be more consistent with that.
Thank you, I appreciate that. We want to enjoy a reputation of having good streamlined services, and especially when it
No,
comes to inspections.
Absolutely, our credibility is absolutely important.
All right, I would entertain a motion to accept this report.
So moved.
And then this one will go to council also. Does October 8th work for you? That would be the normal.
Yeah, sure.
Does that work?
October 8th? That would be better. Thank you, Kim.
Cross-reference to October 8th, if that's okay with the maker of the motion.
Yes.
All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Okay, I see no cards from the public for open forum, so I'll adjourn the meeting, for real this time.
Great.